All right.
All right. Thank you to Stacy for all the sorting all the IT challenges. Welcome to the October 12th meeting of the Issaquah Environmental Board. I'm Jamie Finch, and I'll be your chair tonight. Due to the hybrid nature of this meeting, we will have some members attending in person and others by phone or computer. For all meeting attendees that are attending remotely, please state your name each time before speaking. Mute your microphone when not speaking. I believe, will we be able to see Matangi, whether she is raising her hand, or what's the best way to make sure that we stay up?
Yes.
Maybe it's just
that. Matangi, you can either send the host a chat. You should be able to do that on your phone. Oh, and there we go. You see her on video. Yeah, just raise your real hand, and we'll make sure to keep an eye on you.
Great. And then for all of our board members that are in person, as we've been doing, please indicate desire to speak by tilting your name tag on its side. As we have been doing for the last couple of meetings, we'll be summarizing agreement, or at least the discussion that was had around major topics at the end of those topics. And please, if anyone has any additional comments from those that have attempted to summarize, please feel free to weigh in. I think from here, Stacey, if you could take us through attendance.
Thank you. Tom Anderson.
Here.
Matangi Ramanathan. Here. Nancy Davidson. Here. Jamie Finch.
Here.
Aaron Fisher.
Here.
Rishi Hasra has an excused absence. Dan Hintz.
Here.
Laura Lebeco. Ashwin Manoharan.
Here.
Don McWilliams.
Here.
Ann Newcomb. Here. And Janet Wall.
Here.
Thank you, Stacy. Next on the agenda, we have approval of the minutes. I just wanted to mention, I do think I was hoping to have Billy take a look at the comments related to Title 18, just to see if there's any items that were missed. I just recalled there being some other discussion items that we summarized or included in our summary. So that was my one comment, that we may revisit that and come back maybe next meeting to revisit those. But is there anyone else that had any other comments on the minutes? Well, we will move on from that item and review them next meeting once we've had a chance to review that item. I think from here we go to public comments. I don't know if anyone has indicated a desire to provide comment.
No, we did not receive any written comments. We do have Ann Fletcher on. She said she's not planning to make any comments tonight. Ann, do go ahead and send me a chat if you would like to change and make public comment. No other members of the public comment.
Okay, well, then I will move on to our main agenda items. The first one being Issaquah Climate Action Plan Performance Dashboard.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen a couple of times throughout the presentation tonight. First, just a couple of quick slides that I want to acknowledge were not in the packet for this evening. I felt like they could be a good addition. They are just the content that you've already read in the memo, but I just want to provide that, and then we'll share that afterwards to be added back to the packet. Dale Murky-Crimp, management analyst, one of the two management analysts here at the city. It's really wonderful to be back with you all again on the other side of the summer. The purpose of my time here tonight is to provide an update on the ICAP implementation dashboard that we've been working on since we all met back in June, and then to seek additional feedback ahead of the dashboard launch later this month. Specifically, the direction I'm looking for tonight from the board is, how does this new version of the dashboard fit with the feedback from June around the structure, design, and content of the dashboard? For a little bit of background, as was mentioned in the memo, there were 4 main pieces of feedback from the June meeting. The first one was that the board was eager to see a dashboard that started with high-level content, but provided layers of data and information that individuals could drill down into given their personal level of interest. You wanted a tool that could give people an at-a-glance idea of how we were doing with our implementation and against our climate action goals, but also provided some more information for folks that might want to go a little bit deeper. Secondly, a dashboard that provided connections to resources related to the plan's implementation. Thirdly, a way of knowing how we're doing at any given moment towards our climate action goals and implementation goals. And then generally just some feedback. There was a lot of positive feedback on general color scheme alignment in the mock dashboard images we walked through back in June. And just some more encouragement to really double down on that, to make sure that the visuals in the dashboard itself felt related to and aligned to the ICAP document itself. With that feedback in mind, we took that feedback as a team and applied that to some of the mock-ups that we shared back in June. And I'd like to take the next little bit of time just to walk through how the beta version of the dashboard that was sent in a link ahead of this meeting addresses those 4 main areas of feedback. And after that, I'll pause, and the thought will be to engage in conversation, suggestions, and additional questions. Is there anything, though, before I jump into that would be helpful or that anyone wants to bring up before that?
Dale, just that your slides are in the editing mode. I don't know if you want to go to that way. It'll be a little bit.
I'm not going to be in those anymore, so hopefully that will be okay. Can everyone see the climate action dashboard now?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So for the first piece of feedback, which was to start at a high level and then be able to drill down further into key areas of interest. You can see on this landing page for the dashboard, we have sort of a high level overview just generally of the climate action dashboard, a key for understanding where we are in progress to implementation or meeting goals, and then our 6 key goal areas with below some high level overview of implementation. So where are we in implementation by goal area? Overall for the plan, where are we in implementation specifically within the items we've designated as 2022 items? And then overall, what is our plan? When we look at the entire plan, when are we planning to implement all elements of the plan? And so looking back at this, being able to say, hey, in 2021, we implemented this much of the plan. In 2022, we're implementing this much of the plan. In 23 and 24, this much of the plan. And in 25, 26, this much of the plan. And this aligns to our budget years, not to specific years, but to our budget. And we're coming up as a city and passing our first biennial budget. So you notice this 23 is a very big chunk. That's representative of 2 years, two budget years there. So this starts off at a high level. And also allows you to say you really are more interested in these overarching climate actions. By hovering over this, you're able to click in, and it will take you to a page that is specific to the overarching climate actions section of the plan. So starting with a high level and providing layers of data and information. So specifically being able to look down at the goal area itself. And then also even from here, as it says, click on the goals above right for more information. I noticed this link was broken, but what you should be able to do is click on the goal itself, and it will take you to a page that specifically talks about that visualization. So specifically that overarching goal area. The other piece of feedback was to provide connections and resources related to the plan's implementation. And as you can see on every page, as you go down here, there's some information. It says below you can explore different implementation actions, benchmarks, near-term goals. You can click on an item, and then it will bring you to a related resource outside of the dashboard. I think a great one here for us to click on, I'll go back in a moment, would be to look at our Community Climate Action Challenge, which we're all familiar with. We know this is something that's happening in the community. There's the ability to click on this and have it take you to, actually have it take you to the page. And there, it'll take you to the page. And you'll be able to learn more about the climate, the Community Climate Challenge. Firstly, if it's something that doesn't exist outside of the dashboard, maybe we don't have a resource like that to tell us more about it, you can go ahead and you can hover over an item and it will tell you more about how we know we're on track, or if we're not on track, why we might not be on track towards that goal. So again, providing connections and resources related to the plan's implementation and providing a way of knowing how we're doing in the current moment. In addition, I've already pointed out this feature, but each of the actions has a progress sort of, and it aligns to appear whether it's on track, so we are meeting or exceeding our current year targets and benchmarks. Whether it's in progress, we're not currently meeting our 2022 targets or benchmark. Off track, this could be something that is just really not performing as expected, and then yet to be determined. And you'll notice we have a number of things in here where we've maybe not quite determined what our near-term target or benchmark might be. But each of these has a little message here to tell us where we are, and then a icon that coordinates with that status. And then last, and certainly not least, is just making sure that the dashboard itself aligns visually to the plan. And so we've made some intentional choices to pull images that exist in the ICAP document itself and have those show up in this dashboard. And then also, as I'm sure you've noticed, making sure that the color schemes and the icons, I'll go back to this main page, these icons which show up on every single page of the dashboard, that those are pulled directly from the plan, ensuring that there's alignment visually between the plan and our implementation dashboard here. There are a number of things that we could go into. I really want to have this be driven by this group of people here. And so I'll pause on my presentation, but I'll leave this page up so that we can maneuver around it together as you have questions, thoughts, or comments. And I'll pause there for questions, thoughts, and comments.
Thank you, Dale. Looks like we have a question from Tom. Tom, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Tom Anderson here. So I have a comment on colors. First of all, so I happen to be a person who has red-green color blindness, a common thing amongst males particularly. And it doesn't mean I can't see red-green, but I just don't see it as well as some, and the contrast is harder to discern. So the bar chart, if you scroll down a little bit to the bar chart,
Yep.
For example, so I can, if I put my thinking cap on, I can discern the difference, but it's not easy for me to kind of look at that and see, well, let's see which are the good ones and which are the bad ones, and what are they all. And the legend at the bottom is too small with respect to the graphics above to really make the connection without working hard at it. So I'd suggest a higher contrast color scheme, a better legend on that chart, and also I kind of challenge. I think the bar chart, the bar graphic is the wrong thing to represent these, because it kind of looks like the one at the left. Oh, we're doing great there because it's nice and tall. The one at the right, we're not. But that's not what it's about. Just that happens to have a lot of actions to work on. So I think a graphic that normalizes them so that they all are tally up to 100%, like a pie chart or a gauge where the 100% mark is all the identified actions worked on, and then you can kind of see and scan across and compare the pies and see which one has more progress versus the other. This one, it's kind of hard to figure out. Well, let's see, which ones of these are we having problems with and which ones aren't. You can do it, So you have to put your thinking cap on to discern that information. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom. That's really helpful. And I think accessibility is definitely something that I want to make sure is incorporated. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that input.
Thank you, Tom. Ann, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to second what Tom said. So I'm not colorblind, but after Tom brought that up, I realized, yeah, I really had to put some effort into figuring out which was which as well.
Great.
That's it.
All right. Go ahead.
Thanks, Dale. Dan Hintz, I'd just be curious what you think, and maybe some of the other members of the environmental board here, about the kind of 4 categories of on track, in progress, off track to be determined. I guess on track makes a lot of sense to me. To be determined, I think, does too. I guess I'm having a little hard time distinguishing between, in progress with the kind of tag of benchmarks not being met, and off track not performing as expected. I'd be curious to hear a little bit more about if the nuance between those two, or if this seems like one too many, maybe it would be fine with just kind of 3 tracking items there.
Yeah, I'm happy to share my impression. But again, I'm not sure I have as a creator of this, I don't have a super strong opinion. I think that's up to this group to have. The 2 items, the 2 items that are red and thus hard for Tom to see, that are off track are our overarching goals. So it is if you go to say we look at buildings and energy specifically, I'll just click through here a couple of slides. It's not actually one of these actions down here. It's this up here. That is not performing as expected. And so the reason why that's its own category is that we actually don't have a very clear 2022 target. So we have a target in the plan that says reduce, 25% energy use reduction by 2030, but the plan doesn't actually spell out what that target should be for 2022. And so saying that it's in progress isn't quite right, and saying that it's on track is certainly not right, and saying that it's to be determined isn't quite right either, because we do have a target that's pretty clear, and 2030 is a closer target than some of our others, like the 2050. We might be actually able to develop an interim target, but 2030 is close enough that I'm not sure that we're going to develop an interim target. So and we know that we're not in the right direction. The other one that's the case for is in materials and consumption, which again is the exact same situation. This high level overarching goal, we're headed in the wrong direction, and we are off track, but we are sort of, it doesn't fall into that in progress or yet to be determined categories quite as easily. So I would take feedback on narrowing those categories and just saying, hey, we're going to call that off track. We're going to call anything that's not on track off track, and widening that bucket. But I would defer to this group to make that decision.
That's very helpful. I don't have a super strong opinion. I just felt that was one of my kind of initial questions. I think also, I guess my last comment to that too is, if you can kind of hover over the status for specific goals for each kind of overarching section of this, maybe that can be the spot where you can have a little more nuance there that you're kind of explaining interpretation. So it seems like an opportunity to clarify a little bit between the differences.
Yeah, and that was actually some feedback I got from another user taking a look at this recently. It's like, they've done a really good job having those statuses below, but the ones at the top don't have one. So that we'll definitely add that, and then be able to have the same call out bubbles that'll provide some more context there.
Thank you, Dan. Stacey, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add and definitely looking for feedback on this, but the different categories of where things are. I think we wanted the in progress was meant to be, this is started, it's underway, might be a little short of the targets we set, say like the climate action challenge, we set a $250 target for the end of this year. We're not probably going to make that. So we wanted to have a category for that. But then I also was interested in having a category for something that we plan to do that this year we tried and it didn't happen either because of political reasons, financial reasons, whatever it might be. But we have a major barrier with getting something through. So just wanted to, I feel like we want to distinguish between the two where we're falling a little bit short, but we could probably put some more effort behind it versus we have a major issue here. So yeah, any other thoughts folks have for organizing those, but just want to make sure you have the context for where we were trying to distinguish.
Thanks, Stacey. Maybe I'll just hop in. I do have some thoughts on that. I similarly think there needs to be maybe revisiting of those categories. The one, like I feel like the off track, like we're not meeting our goals versus we haven't started this and we were saying we're going to start this, might be one distinction that would help. It actually might require a separate category. And that actually ties into some other feedback I have on this graphic. I similarly think that actually having future year stuff in here is likely what's making this really difficult to look at and be able to understand quickly. I actually, thinking back to like CIP, having this is like, it's like a simple table might be more effective at saying, these are the number of actions that we have that are in these different categories. These are for this year, and then these are the future year projects. I just think that having future year in that visualization, because I think that it is in there, makes it hard to understand at a glance, at least with that sort of visualization. So that would be one area of feedback that I would have. I actually think also within the details of these categories, I wonder if a table format might be easier to be able to scroll down and be able to really quickly see. Like right now, my eyes have to go to a bunch of different places to see what we're on track with and what we aren't, rather than looking down a column, seeing this is what we're on track on, or this is what we're not. So I do wonder if that area might, some organization change and maybe simplification. It might not allow for the images, but I do think it makes it a little harder to take in as it is currently. I did have one other question. So as we think, so like taking the example of the Climate Action Challenge, would we anticipate having the specifics around, like we had a goal of X and this is what we're currently performing to, this is when it was updated? I'm just curious on like how we're thinking about updating like the cadence as well as what we plan on communicating to someone when they might land on a given action. So I don't know if that's Dale or Stacy that would be able to help with kind of what our plan is there.
Yeah, I can start and then hand it over to Dale. I think we decided most of these can be updated quarterly. There may not, some of these are longer term and there may not be an update, but it's actually the way we set it up, Dale set it up, it's very easy to go through and do updates. So that's our plan right now, it's quarterly. And then we are collecting the specific data. I don't know, Dale, how we dig into that, but around, for instance, the Climate Action Challenge, you'll be able to see how many have signed up, what our target was, and then eventually we'll link that back then to the greenhouse gas emission reductions based on that. So trying to get it all that level of detail. And that'll feed into our overall target.
That's all. I do think just clear communication around, like, for example, like we've been talking about what is off track, like someone's going to want to look at and understand what that is. And so letting them know the specifics of like the timing of when we're saying we're off track and the specifics of why we're saying we're off track would be really helpful. I think my last comment is at the very bottom of the first page, it shows that kind of 100% graph with all of the different like plan year or actions per year. My guess is that some of those span multiple years. So I do wonder if that graphic might end up being a little confusing in that it only has our launch year. Like if I'm wanting to look at and see what is currently ongoing, there might be, I mean, we might still be doing climate action plan in 2023. That would be a 2022 year in this. And I don't know that we're going to be able to like drill down into the 2022 actions here. But I do think it would be helpful to understand, like some of these will be moment in time actions that are taken. Some will be ongoing programs or actions that are spanning a longer period of time. So I do think, and I don't know what it is, if it's a can or if it's something that just shows we can get to a point that we can see that not only the start date but duration, and kind of understand what is ongoing and that someone could participate in at a given time, or just might want to be aware that the city is working on. So, yeah, that was.
Great, super helpful, Jamie. Some of those things I think are very doable. A couple of those we might have to, it might not be a visual that's coming out of data. It might be something we draw or create and then drop in just as a static image. But I agree with a lot of what you just offered. Thank you.
Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
Yes, Tom Anderson again. Don't want to belabor the icons too much, but anyway, what Dan was saying kind of resonated with me. I feel like when I scanned the activities there and saw the on track check mark, green check mark, okay, I know what that means. The off track, black with a dash, okay, I know what that means. When I saw the little square with some checks or whatever, I don't know, I'm not sure what's in there. I had to engage my brain and go look somewhere and kind of figure out, well, what does that mean? And it would be nice to find a graphic which can kind of evoke the thing we want to say without having to go look somewhere else. I know on some kind of dashboards I've seen people use a green circle for on track, a half green circle, one side green, the other not green to show something's in progress, and then an empty circle or black circle for off track. I don't know, that's just an idea of a way to show, to illustrate that in-between state of, yeah, we're making progress, but we're not quite where we want to be. And it is a sort of graphic that you don't have to go look up to get what it's talking about. So that's just a suggestion. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Nancy, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Nancy Davidson, and I would like to build on what Tom just said. I think your description of those icons are not clear, and I'll say that. In progress means that the targets or benchmarks are not being met, but you're in progress, so maybe they'll be met by the end of the year. So it says to me, it sounds like we're not going to even meet it by the end of the year, that we have something that has either caused a disruption to that activity and it's not going to happen, or we're only getting 20% of the people we expected to participate. It doesn't, so it's not very clear what in progress. In progress can mean we're at 50% of the year, and the rest of the 50% of the year we think we're going to hit it, because if we keep the same progress, that's in progress and we're getting there. It's a different definition than what we've got here. And so what we're not showing really is when we have a benchmark or something that is really, we're not going to meet it. We know we're not going to meet it. We can see it right now, and we need to do something different. This one does not say that to me. This one says we're in progress and we might get there. That's just how I read it. And that to be determined is, I think, really troublesome. And that means it might be better to say not started. It's more in progress because you are really starting to work on it, or it's a future year. To be determined says that, it's just not clear on what you're doing with each of those two activities. The other two, I clearly understand what you're trying to communicate with those. But those two, I think, are real red flags to people that are trying to understand that. And the icons don't help them at all. So I think you need to figure out what you're trying to communicate about those. And these icons and the words do not do that. For those two, for me.
Thanks, Nancy.
All right. I just had two other quick comments. One, I don't know if it's just a part of this being a demo, but I haven't been able to figure out how to go back. Oh, is that just the bottom?
Bottom thinger.
Is it the bottom thinger? Okay.
Yeah. And so this is figuring out exactly how to do this. If we want to put in back or home icons in the corner, which we can. If we want to use the city of Issaquah logo as a home touch point, these icons will always take you to the main page of that category, no matter where you are. But I agree. I think deciding how to move within is the jury's out a little bit, and we can very easily, similar to the city's homeless outreach dashboard or similar to our strategic plan dashboard, include home and back buttons in the top corner to make that clearer, depending on what this group thinks would be most helpful.
I guess because the problem with the back button on the bottom part is if you're on any like viz other than the second one, you go back to, instead of going home, which is what I would expect if I've just come from home under the previous whatever might have come in and so I've been pressing the back button, going back to the memo doc and going back in. I do think there's something there that could be helpful. The other was just a question. So I think it was on the building and energy category. There's the citywide energy use by type with graphs. Yeah, that one. Is that going to be the same view for all? Like, I'm just curious how that space is going to be used for all the different categories.
For each overarching goal.
Is that, because this one doesn't seem specific to maybe it is, but is that specific to just the buildings and energy? I wasn't clear if that.
Yes. So this is just the goal for, this is just the overarching goal for buildings and energy. So it's just communicating the citywide energy use, and our goal is to reduce that by 25%. This is just for this one.
Okay. So I guess the only comment on that is I don't see anywhere in here that we have the overall, like these all put together, like we have it by category, but I don't see the overall Issaquah's targets overarching. Maybe it's in actually saying, as I'm saying, it's probably in that overarching section. Is that where you would expect to find that in that overarching climate actions, and that would be in that place on that category?
For greenhouse gas emissions?
Yeah, so similar to this, but like not just for the buildings and energy category.
Yes, so that greenhouse gas emission data will go here, and that will sit at the top of this. Similarly, like the way the plan is set up, the overarching goal within each category section will sit at the top of the dashboard. So this is where greenhouse gas, we've got reduced greenhouse gas emissions. The visual for that will sit here, and then you'll be able to click on that, and that'll bring up a larger view of that visual with any sort of additional data we have related specifically to our greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals.
Okay. Yeah, and I know we have limited space on that first summary like sheet, but I do right now that overall goal that someone would, if they just want to come and understand what are we doing with the climate action plan, where are we trying to go in general, you don't see that until you click in. And unless
yeah, if we wanted that to sit on the home page, it absolutely could. I think we're sort of waiting on that data a little bit from King County to have that, but we can absolutely have that sit front and center.
Yeah, I just wonder that, and maybe it's not the first thing you see, that just seems like really critical information if someone was to land here that might make sense. There might be other things that we could put further back, but just a thought, as that does seem like some really critical information for someone to be able to understand and land.
Yeah, I totally agree.
That's everything I had. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Dale, real quick question for, I guess, kind of some of the slides Jamie was just talking about with some of the reduction or increase in percentages goals. Is the baseline year 2022, or does it go back? Or I guess I'm just, was curious on that. Like 25% reduction from
2005?
Oh, yeah, it depends on it depends on the target.
Okay.
Yeah, those are listed in the plan, and I think we've provided that detail at least in the back end of this, so we can make sure that's clear.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was saying. It could be a cool graphic, like I'm on the buildings and energy one, where it's 25% reduction by 2030, and I'm thinking it's like, well, is that starting in 2019 when it's higher, so it's easier to reach that target? But just something where kind of shows where that starts from, and even maybe what that goal looks like on one of these bar graphs. A 25% reduction from that first reporting year. So yeah, I'm just kind of curious about that, and I think that'd be neat to have kind of clarified on these slides that are relative to obviously the first reporting. And I guess a real small comment still on the buildings and energy one, whether lighting needs to be included or not. It's just so small and such a small percentage of these overall greenhouse gas producers. So I, wonder if that might just make more sense keeping commercial, residential, industrial. It almost just looks like a very thin line. You can hardly tell. I don't even know if it has the ability to hover over it. I guess it does. But yeah, anyway, my last comment.
Yeah, and if you all felt that it was more illustrative just to give the overalls because we could just give the total even for the main page, and then you click into it and head into more detail where you're able to see more of that tiny little lighting line. I think that is something that we could consider and do pretty easily as well. I think this is a really, really good point. I think specifically about having some of those target lines or trend lines, and also being clear about goal from when. I think some of the tricky things are that we have sort of, at least from my reading of the plan, we don't have necessarily data. I actually don't have the data on some of the original, a reduction from a certain year's number. And so until we have that data, it's a little hard to sort of then draw a trend line in here, but we can definitely work to get that and then make sure that goal line is in here as well.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I'd second that motion. That would be super helpful. Nancy, go ahead.
Thank you, Ann.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
Ann, go ahead.
Thank you. Hey, way to go on this, Dale, and your team. This is really cool. And I want to say, as far as going backwards and forwards, I did notice that the numbers at the bottom, like the page numbers, the one on the left, so there's, say, page 2, and then there's 13. I did notice if you click on the smaller number, the page number, then there's a list that comes up that you can navigate around. Did you notice that?
I didn't.
Okay, so
Just did.
maybe that's not as noticeable. So maybe arrows might be better, but whatever you guys think. And then also, it's not working on my phone right now, but I'm guessing that might come in time.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's one of our biggest challenges right now, I would say, with Power BI. But honestly, with all sort of dashboarding software like this, that's definitely been a limitation. And so I do think, one of my next steps thinking about the sort of some of the simplification stuff will be to also think about making sure that the shape of the dashboard is such that it opens nicely in your Safari or Google browser on your phone. And one of the pieces, as I caveated in the memo, is that it's definitely not sitting in the right frame size currently. So we're working a bit on that as well, which is why you got a kind of funny shaped front page there as we're trying to figure out how to make it fit. So I really appreciate you noticing that. And yeah, I think there's a lot that if you're a little patient and willing to click around, you'll find some of those fun things about how to maneuver. The jury is out for me on how much to try to point people to in such a limited way, and then how much to just kind of let people click around and sort of figure it out. So I think everyone around the room might have a different opinion of that, but it's definitely something I've been wrestling with. So I appreciate you pointing that out. But yeah, it's the maneuverability. There are a lot of different ways to move around. So
Yes, thank you. Way to go on this.
Thank you, Ann.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I wanted to comment on your natural systems and water resources page. And granted that tree canopy is not measured, it's every 3 to 5 years. So this page is never going to change for 3 to 5 years roughly. But your water resources, you can talk about water use in the city. And there's an annual report provided to the state of Washington by the water utility. And you can pull that data pretty easily out to see how people are doing in terms of conservation and water use. And so you might want to talk to your water utility. And I think that's something you can put in an annual update because they should be doing that. And it's required by the state to do that. So I think it's an easy piece of data for you to put in that will show more on this page than every 2% change in tree canopy, though that's a lot. It's hard to see that that's a lot. But I think water conservation, if you can say per capita usage of water in the city has gone down from 300 gallons per day per person to 288, just watch that trend happen. And then how much water is the city totally using, not just per person use, but as a city, how much are we using? No, I know we're growing. I think that kind of data also helps people think about water conservation because it describes it on here, but it doesn't show it.
Yeah, great point. I would say that, Stacy, that's something for us to both talk about. It's not currently a measure we've got in the plan. And so right now, all this does is show data on goals from the plan. So I think that's a good thing to think about adding to this for sure.
Thank you. Dan, go ahead.
Thank you. So I love that the climate action challenge is in there. And I was just thinking, the more we can point to it to say, hey, this is how you can help us not only meet our goals, but also help us track our goals, the better. So if there's other places, like maybe on each page, say, directs people to the climate action challenge, if that's not too big of a hassle, if there's space.
One of the things that I'm thinking, this is me spitballing here, is that I feel like the home page, the landing page, should really be much more of a feature of what's going on in the current year. Whether that be the current actions underway and how you can participate. And I'm wondering if that could be utilized more as a sort of education and engagement portion on that board. To do things just like what you sort of mentioned, to sort of highlight opportunities to engage.
I love it. Yeah, the more we can get people to engage, the better.
All right. I have one more question, just on that bottom graph. Is this correct that after next year, we only have a handful of actions that everything will be either implemented this year or next year, and then there's a couple that land in 2025?
Yeah, so Dale and I looked through what's slated to be covered this year, plus in the 23-24 budget is about over 90% of the actions should be initiated by the end of 24. But as was pointed out earlier, I think 45% of actions are actually ongoing. So we'll still be continuing forward quite a few actions future years, plus adding in some of those other ones.
And this is not necessarily a dashboard question, but a more general question. Just looking at, we have goals going out 2030, 2050, et cetera. I think we had asked, and I'm not sure where it landed, like the update frequency for the climate action plan and when, because presumably we'll have to take additional actions at some point. So curious, one, what that plan looks like in general, and then two, how could that or should that be shared? Because if I was just a community member, I would look at this and, oh, we're gonna be done next year, great. We're gonna be there, we're gonna get all our goals. So I just wonder if there's some context around what the current plan means and what the time frame is for that. Because I'm actually curious. I want to know the answer to what we think that will look like. So curious on what is the plan for the update process and how that might be communicated.
Yeah, great question. I don't know if we communicate that very well here, so we could talk about that. I was just having this conversation with Ann Fletcher earlier this week, but it was intended as a 5-year plan. I had originally been planning to have kind of a community check-in in 2024. Doing that ahead of the budget proposals would be very valuable, so probably spring 2024. I think what we'll see is while we may have been able to initiate a lot of actions, those actions may not be moving the needle on our overall targets. So using that conversation to both prioritize what should go forward in a budget for 25, 26, but also seeing if we want to shift course. We have 80 plus actions in this plan. Maybe we're going to prioritize down to a smaller number, start thinking about what that plan update might look like and how it might be structured. So that's my thoughts right now, is a kind of community check-in early 2024, so that we can be really strategic going forward with the budget in the next couple of years of implementation. So, but also, we can have more of that conversation early January or December when we're going to talk about next year's work plan too, to get feedback from the board.
Right. Any other comments or questions from the board?
Would just like to say thank you and way to go. This is beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Dale. Thank you, Stacy.
Yeah, thank you all.
Dale, is there any other questions or feedback that you were hoping for from us?
No, this has all been very helpful. I think my next steps are incorporate some of this feedback. Got a big old page of notes right now, and so we'll follow up in communication. I'll follow up also with Stacy with just sort of here are the high levels of what I heard, and here are the changes that are going to happen as a result of that. I think one of the big things you'll probably notice the next time you see this thing is that the landing page is going to be pretty dramatically different. I think the visuals on it, with the exception of the gauge, are going away and are going to be rethought a bit. And so that's something to just be on the lookout for. It'll look a little different the next time you see it. But I really appreciate the feedback as always from this group. And it's been great to be back here virtually with you tonight.
Thank you, Dale. I am not going to attempt to summarize everything we talked about, and I think we'll just have to follow up with what Stacy and Dale come up with. My memory doesn't expand to the number of pieces of feedback, so I think I'm going to give myself a pass on that one. But thank you, Dale, and we'll look forward to Stacy, do you have anything?
Yeah, just question around timeline. So I think we were hoping to launch this before the end of the year. As you know, our meetings are pretty packed full. Do you all want this to come back to you? We could do it at maybe our special meeting in December, or want to provide any additional feedback over email? How would the board like to continue the conversation and kind of somewhat sign off, or at least give the thumbs up that this is ready to go to the public?
I'd like to see it launched, and if there's more tweaks that want to be made along the way, then I'm sure she could do that. Dale could do that, right?
Any other comments? Don, go ahead.
I think we should get another chance to look at it on email before it goes live.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I haven't been commenting, Dale. I've been panning through it on an iPad here on Safari, and it's just not cooperating for me. So.
No worries. Yeah, this link will always be live for you all. So as I'll make updates in the coming weeks, planning to spend a lot of time in there on Friday in particular of this week. But we can absolutely let you all know when we've got this sort of next round of feedback implemented, and you all can take a look at it again.
That sounds great. Yeah, we'll send that out over email, and if anyone wants us to come back and walk through it with the board before the end of the year, we can do that. But yeah, as Ann was saying too, I think we can also make additional tweaks to it after it goes.
Yes, we can always make tweaks. That's the one of my big feelings as a bureaucrat is that we got to break down this idea that once something is out there in the world, it can't be changed. So please know that you can always reach out to me and email me about things that you think could be improved about any of these communication tools, and we'll incorporate that feedback and make it work better.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. I think with that, we will be moving on to our next item on the agenda, which is the annual report input that Stacey will be in lead on.
Great. Thank you. All right, I know it's October, but with our November meetings being very full, and then we had some adjustments to this meeting that we'll talk about in a little bit, we thought it'd be useful to use the time tonight to knock off one of these items that would have been crammed into a November meeting. So what I wanted to talk through tonight was kind of an outline or draft annual report, and get some initial feedback on it, particularly around the survey. So the draft report was included in your packet. As a reminder, it's due to council at the end of the year. I'm going to walk through the sections of the report real quick, just take any general input on any of those sections, any additions, feedback, and then specifically did want to talk about the self-analysis. I definitely welcome additional feedback on the report over email over the 6 weeks or so before we bring it back to you all in December. So the structure that we followed for the report is the same as last year. Council really liked the format and the report that was submitted last year, so we kept it the same. And essentially, it just follows the different sections of the IMC, and then I went through and did some updates. So the first section is about how the board was involved in providing feedback on plans, regulations, and codes. So going back through our agendas over the last 10 months, provided a brief summary of the different plans. The next section is on written statements or reports. So I spoke a bit about the letters that we provided, 3 formal letters, and also that a process that we're going to follow to ensure that there's a feedback loop going forward. The next section, section 3, is around research and best practices. I haven't edited this yet, so looking for any additional feedback that folks have for this section. Section 4 is around the natural environment checklist, which we talked about at our last meeting. So summarize the discussions there. And then the board did request at our last meeting that we include a summary of the checklist in kind of new format that we're going to propose to use going forward, and that's included within this report. So I'll be working with our CPD team to develop that and provide to you with the updated draft report in December. Section 5 summarizes the comments that we've had on the ICAP. Section 6 is somewhat repetitive of section 2. It is also summarizing recommendations. I think maybe meant to be less formal than the letters, but I just spoke again to the letters, and then also the ongoing feedback for each of the things. And then 7 and 8 are about submitting the report, doing a self-analysis, and then carrying out other duties as prescribed. So if folks have had a chance to look at this, have items they want to make sure are included, things they want to remove, would welcome that feedback first, and then we can talk about the self-analysis.
Stacey, are there any particular areas that you think are, and other than the self-analysis, that you think is a particular like fork in the road that we should talk about? Or
No, the only one I wasn't sure what to include there was the review, research, and best practices to advise on environmental policies and code. It looks like last year, I know the EV charging ordinance was a major topic, but there was a lot of research and different codes reviewed. So I could keep it. They do, from last year, we did talk about the Title 18 review So I can mention some of the other plans that were reviewed, but I didn't have anything that really jumped to mind specifically for that section, but if others have things that they want to make sure are captured here.
A question for you on the title of your, so like number 4 there, that's a rather lengthy title to number 4. Does it have to be that, or can you
It's
put that
directly,
into?
yeah, it's directly pulled from the IMC. So I could shorten it.
Just thinking this from like, I'm a council member reading this, and I'm looking at that going, oh God.
Yeah, we could probably take out the second sentence that has more of the details around it, but. Well, I can give folks time to review it, and if there are any additions, things you want taken out, anything that I forgot to include, definitely flag those. And then the other item I did want to talk about is the self-analysis. We are supposed to do that each year, and I believe Jean sent out a survey to all last year. So I put 3 options forward in our memo. One was to do a survey like that, like we did last year. And I think that's a way to do it anonymous. You can do it on your own time. It doesn't really allow for any interaction or discussion or reflection on the comments at the time they're made. The other option would be discussion at one of our meetings. It's not anonymous, but it would allow us to kind of engage in a conversation together. As noted, we don't have a lot of extra time at our upcoming meetings, but we could definitely make that happen. And then a third option was to have Billy and myself maybe reach out to each of you one-on-one, have a conversation, kind of do a survey over the phone. If you wanted to make it a little bit more interactive, we'd be happy to do that. Or I'm welcome to other ideas on how folks want to do the self-analysis. So I was just looking for some feedback on how we should move that forward.
I think maybe it would be good if we had, I like the idea of doing it in person so we could all discuss it, but also we could allow people to like anonymously write some feedback, like maybe on a piece of paper or something like that, just so they have that option as well.
Thank you, Ashwin. Cameron, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. I like 1 and 2, basically
Okay.
creating an anonymous discussion, and then maybe the top 3 or 5, whatever it is the discussion for it.
So would that be doing a survey in advance,
Yeah.
and then bringing the results to
Bringing
the
the
group to
results to
discuss?
discuss,
Okay.
yeah.
Good idea.
I agree with what you guys said. Thank you.
Does that meet your suggestion as well, Ashwin, or that variation?
Yeah.
Good, all right. So maybe I'll plan to send out a survey in November. We could present the results of in the report in December, and then schedule a conversation in January. Would that work for folks, just given our limited time? Or we can see if we can squeeze it into our January meeting as well. Okay.
Lacey, if you want to send this, if you can send this to us via Word, I would be happy to send it back to you with a review turned on.
Great, thank you.
Is there anything else on annual report input that?
No, I'll send the document out in Word to look for any additional input via email, and then also plan to look for that survey to come out to you all in early November. And then we'll plan to finalize the report with the survey results in December. And we'll schedule a discussion on the survey results either in December or January.
Well, I think with that, we move to our next section, our reports. I think, Stacy, you may have first report with the ICAP report that I believe is for council, or
Yes.
that's going to council.
Yeah, great. So in your packet was the ICAP report that I transmitted to council for their October 3rd meeting. We'll likely continue to do reports to council about 2 times a year, just to keep them updated on the various actions and implementation status. Hopefully nothing in there was a surprise to you all. I've tried to provide those updates to you monthly, but there were a few things that have evolved over the last few weeks that I did just want to highlight for you all, and then can take questions on the report. So our Clean Buildings program, this is working with existing buildings on energy efficiency. We are in full swing. We're working on developing a detailed marketing plan, which will involve a lot of one-on-one outreach to buildings, through building owners, through utility mailings, phone calls, emails, in-person meetings. We're also working to set up a series of presentations with groups that represent building owners and business owners. We're also meeting with a couple different building owners to see if they'll step up as an ambassador for the program and help us recruit others. We met with the school district yesterday, and we're going to begin benchmarking their buildings over the next month or so, and getting that process underway, which is really exciting. For our climate vulnerability assessment, we're initiating a few smaller focus group meetings over the coming weeks. These are with community groups where we've identified them as potentially at higher risk for climate impacts, and really hearing from them about concerns, how they're preparing, what their needs are from the city. Next week, we have a workshop at the Senior Center. Small numbers for registration yet, so if you know anyone that might be interested in attending that, please spread the word. That's on Monday. And then we are also planning to go out to Tent City 4, which is the tent city right at High Point, going out with our behavioral health specialists next Wednesday to meet with them. Quick update on our heat pump campaign. We've had over 400 people attend the 5 workshops that have been held since July. And those are representatives from across the 5 cities that are participating in the program. We have just scheduled another series of workshops to happen between now and the end of the year. About 20 to 25 of the participants have been from Issaquah. The program is facing some good challenges, I'd say, with the Inflation Reduction Act. There's a lot of great benefits coming out of that act, and we want to encourage the residents to take advantage of the rebates and incentives under the IRA. It may end up causing some challenges for our installers and having a lot of demand early in the new year, so we're working closely with them to prepare them for that. But also really wanting to educate our community around the IRA benefits. So as we learn more about the Inflation Reduction Act, we are building that into the presentation so we can pass the information along to the community. For our affordable housing partnership for the heat pump program, we are still waiting on the King County Housing Authority to evaluate the Issaquah Imagine Housing Complex. King County Housing Authority will go in and do a full weatherization update to the building along with heat pump installations, using all of the funding that they can, and then essentially the city will cover any difference. So that process is also taking a little bit longer, but the benefit of it is going to be much greater than originally anticipated, because we'll be providing that full weatherization update and not just heat pump installations. We have also received state funding for a market rate rebate, as well as additional low income, probably focused on the single family installs. We're working on a lot of the administrative components for that project, but plan to launch it in January before. So more to that.
Stacey, could you explain on market rate, what you mean by
Market
that?
rate would be a rebate that would be open to non-income qualified folks. So right now, a lot of the city's funding to help pay for installations is in the supporting low income. Some of this grant will support up to the moderate income as well. And then the market rate will be to provide those that aren't lower. So there may end up being a cap that aligns with the rebates under the Inflation Reduction Act, as a salary income cap. But it would allow most of the residents to qualify for those rebates. So our goal is to stack the rebates. So with the Inflation Reduction Act, with our GEMSCO rebate, with city rebates through the grants, and really try and get folks the most money that they can for them.
Great.
And then we are working with, as was reported in the report, we're working with PSE on their community solar program for a potential installation at the community center. We had a great meeting with them last week, and we're moving into a site visit for a solar array on the community center. They'll then go through an installer bid process, site design, permitting, legal review, council approval. Assuming we don't hit any roadblocks for any of those phases, we do anticipate an installation, so a community solar installation happening just following a roof replacement on the community center next year. If you're not familiar with the community solar program, it's PSE's program that allows residents to subscribe directly into purchasing solar power. So it's especially very beneficial for folks that live in multifamily that might not be able to make those decisions about putting solar on their own home. So we're excited to potentially be part of that program. So those are just a few updates that I wanted to provide since that report was sent to council. But I want to see if there are any questions about any items in the report.
Ann, go ahead.
This is really cool, the community solar program. Do you know what size it is?
They're looking at the whole roof, which I think there's
Wow.
23,000 square feet, I think is what they're estimating. In terms of how many people would be able to subscribe to it, I don't know those numbers, but we might know more after the site visit.
It's great.
Go ahead.
I tried to do one of these at a community center in another city. Just make sure you have the structural strength to handle the wind loads. We had grants and it didn't work out so well.
Okay,
So make sure somebody's looking at the roofing because it's tough when, it's very sad when you think you have something and it fails.
okay, great. Yeah, we will make sure to mention that when they're out in 2 weeks.
Is it a metal roof?
I don't know, I'm not sure.
All right. Oh, Tom, sorry.
Yes, I have a comment. So I wasn't clear what you were going to do at Tent City for. Could you go over that again?
Yeah, we're, so for the climate vulnerability assessment, we've broken it up into a couple of different outreach opportunities with the community. So we've held a public workshop. And then we were also planning to do smaller workshops or focus group meetings with a few, with various residents of the community that might be at higher risk for climate impacts. So we identified senior center, homeless community, non-English speaking community. Those are the ones off the top of my head. So we met with the city's behavioral health team, and they recommended that we try and reach out to Tent City for. We may do something else with the meals program as well. So our goal is to talk to residents, have informal conversations, hear how different climate events impact them, what they do to stay safe, and then also what they need from the city in order to support them during future impacts.
So you'll make sure they know about the cooling centers and warming centers. Are there warming centers as well as cooling centers?
I don't know if we do. I think the library has done some.
They've done them. I can't remember who was the gentleman that joined a few meetings ago. I remember him mentioning that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember if they're community center. I know there's some partnerships with the school district too, but I can't remember if those are for warming or cooling.
One question for you, Stacy. Do we consider wildfire smoke a climate like impact?
We are talking about it, yes. Yeah, that's definitely something folks are raising.
So you could give them N95s.
Yeah, that's an idea, actually, we could pass out, we were gonna bring some things to share, I'm sure.
Seemed to work well.
Right. Any, oh, sorry, Tom.
Oh, no.
I think that is everyone then, unless I need to keep my eyes on it a little better. Well, I think with that, we can move on to other business and announcements.
Not doing budget updates?
Oh, sorry, budget update. That's an important item. We should talk about that.
Great, yeah, I can remember where I put that. All right, I did just put a couple slides so folks had some visuals for this, and then we've had some updates since the packet went out as well. So I did send out an email update with some information on the budget process, but hopefully you're aware it is in full swing, and we do have a 2-year budget this time. The ICAP budget that was submitted for 23-24 is really intended to reflect our needs for short and medium-term actions, as well as get the ball rolling for some of those longer-term actions that might need to get started now. As we mentioned with the presentation with Dale, by the end of 2024, we do anticipate initiating approximately 90% of the ICAP actions. That is just initiating them. That is not indicative of where we will be in terms of meeting our targets, but we will be tracking that very closely. So highlights of some of the items included in the budget. Sustainability coordinator, and my vision for that position is that they would focus a lot on municipal operations, so working on our buildings, our fleet, those types of items. We also have funding requests in for energy efficiency in buildings, advancing electrification, green building, and then expanding EV charging infrastructure, and then implementing some of the work that we're starting this year with the vulnerability assessment. This is very high level snapshot, a lot of additional items that are in that budget and shown in the budget packet.
Stacey, Anne had a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Anne.
So I was watching the city council meeting and Whitco, good presentation, all good stuff. So it seemed like there were questions about retrofitting the city buildings and how expensive that was going to be, and you'd only be able to do one building, or, like, how few you'd be able to do with the funds that you have. And it made me think about how we've been, how we, over the years, have been making our house more energy efficient and airtight. And there's definitely some low-hanging fruit that it seems like we could do to all of them, just to make sure that, all the caulking is done, that there's no air coming in under the doors, just filling all the cracks. I don't know if that's an issue with the municipal buildings or not, but I know windows are expensive and insulation is expensive, and heat pumps, switching out if something's not broken is expensive, but if that is an issue in any buildings, maybe that could be just done in all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So maybe I'll just give folks a little background on what happened Monday, but yeah, absolutely address that. So there was a meeting this week with City Council where we talked about the Sustainability Fund. If folks aren't familiar with the Sustainability Fund, it comes from the admin fee for our waste hauler contract. So the city has a fee that's charged to Ecology. It's passed down to the residents in most cases. And it has been going into a fund that's been used for a variety of sustainability initiatives. It's helping support our low-income heat pump program, as well as the clean building program right now. So council had asked staff to have a conversation about whether we should consider increase on the percentage of that fee from what was currently proposed in the 23-24 budget. That was the conversation that we had on Monday. The fee, that would be raising the fee from 6% to 9%. It would generate about $300,000 a year. It is about a $2 increase per resident on their bill, which doesn't sound like a lot, but there are going to be some substantial increases on the recology bills next year because of additional fees that are coming in from the county, because it's a new contract and we had a really good deal with them for the last 10 years. So the fees that will be passed down to residents are going to be more on par with what other jurisdictions are paying. So folks are already going to see a huge increase next summer, and there was a lot of concern from staff, and then we heard from council about adding on to that as well. But we did have a discussion about what we could use those funds for if we did have some additional funding coming in. There was a lot of interest, particularly from Councilmember Hunt, around putting some of those funds towards municipal retrofits. And I think we actually could, even if 300,000 or a portion of that, we could do something with our buildings. I think the administration is interested in waiting until our fleet study is completed. And then we're also going through a facility assessment and a decarbonization study, and coming out of those studies with a proposal for a capital improvement plan or a one-time ask to council is also another option. So no final decision was made on this. But I think most of council is kind of moving away from having the 9% increase just because of the impact to residents. It is something that could be changed annually, so it might be something that we consider putting in place in 2024 in order to build up.
Did you have anything else?
Oh, yeah, I mean, those heat sensing guns, like if you don't want to spend the money to do the reverse suction airflow so you can see where the leaks are, which is really cool because you don't always know. Those heat guns work really well. They detect heat and cold, so you can see where the leaks are with that. That would be very cost effective. You keep using it over and over.
Yeah, absolutely. And McDonald Miller will be coming out to do a full assessment as part of this request from council for the community center to kind of give us overall, if we wanted to completely decarbonize, even for solar, if the community solar program didn't work out, what might the cost be? And then we can kind of see where maybe that we have our biggest bang for the buck with some smaller things.
Nancy, go ahead.
So I know we have EV stations in the community, many of which don't work. So who owns these and is going to maintain those?
Yeah, so the city owns 3. We have been working since early spring on getting those replaced and some new ones in. So we are under contract now with ChargePoint and Puget Sound Solar to both replace and then put in some new ones. We are currently putting out for bid the actual street work to do that. So we are hoping by the end of the year those will be in or in the new year. It's just taken some time to get all those contracts in place.
Who owns those and maintains them?
So the city owns them right now. They will move, and the city's been providing those at no charge. So we will be upgrading the existing ones. And then, actually 2 at the community center is one of the proposed sites. And then we'll likely be moving to a service with ChargePoint where they would own and maintain them, but they'd work with the city to set the fee. So it's not a huge burden on our public works staff who have been having to manage the existing. So that is what's proposed right now. We are also talking about doing some kind of crowdsourcing or community engagement event to get ideas for the next slate of chargers and where they should go. But right now, we're looking at community center, replacing the Highlands, one for our fleet, possibly Pickering Barn, although we've also talked about one here, but we don't have the fleet here yet. That would.
And as you pursue things like solar panels on buildings, municipal buildings, who will ultimately maintain those?
Yeah, so community.
So, see, I know maintenance is a big cost in
Yeah.
all of these, so that's why I'm
Yeah,
asking the
absolutely.
question.
That's why we're trying to go the easy route with the EV chargers. So the community solar program, PSC would own and maintain those if that does move forward. If they are put on a municipal building, that would be the city's responsibility. We'd have to build in that maintenance.
So ultimately, will they end up in the public works department to call the people out to maintain, or are they gonna be your responsibility to call and maintain? I'm asking the question because I
Yeah.
think that
No,
it's
it's a
easy
good
to
question.
build, it's very
Yeah.
hard to say, I own this, I'm responsible
Right.
for it, and thus I need to make sure it's taken care of, and that's why I'm asking the question, who owns these?
Yeah, well, for that, we haven't identified any sites. So, but that would be, I would see through facilities, and that's why I'm working very closely with facilities. They have to be fully on board and have the trained staff and budget to maintain them. So it's a great question. It's not one that would happen in my silo or public works, but really trying to work across the city to make sure there's full support. Great question.
That's it.
I had a question / comment. Well, I guess it's not a question, it's a comment. On the previous slide around the addition of a sustainability coordinator and some of your description around what that sustainability coordinator might do. One of the things, obviously, it would be great for the city to take on projects kind of in addition to what is like just necessary for a building to retrofit or enhance a building. One of the things that I am really curious about is ongoing purchasing. So the things that are going to be purchased anyways, what is and I think this is something that we'll probably talk about next year, but who is going to be the person that helps coordinate? We're purchasing new vehicles, we're purchasing new lawn or landscaping equipment. Like, how is that? All of those items that there's already dollars associated with, dollars are going to get spent. How are we making sure that the dollars are being spent in a way that are obviously they have to meet the need of what the city needs with that particular thing, but that is just something that I would be concerned if we were relying on each individual department to figure out what that means. So I do wonder where and maybe if that should be a part of that role as well as your role, because I just am concerned. I think that's a really important thing. It doesn't require additional spending necessarily. And I do think that as we think about not only this role, but also just like our work plan, that's something that I really am interested in understanding more how the city is thinking about the purchasing and how there's an environmental lens or a climate lens applied to purchasing decisions.
Absolutely, yeah, and that was one of many things I meant by, if you do look at the proposed budget, you won't see those specific policies called out because they're covered by the staff time, so they're within the staff request, I guess. Purchasing is, we do have in the ICAP a sustainable purchasing policy. I have that on the work plan for next year and a couple placeholders for this board. So keep pushing us to make sure we get there. I think that's going to be a hard and complicated one. So we're going to need a lot of support and input from this board, but yeah, great.
And go ahead.
So just a question, am I hearing a heater on over here?
It might be the
It's
fans
the fan.
from the
Okay.
background.
Like an air purifier.
Oh, there might be an air purifier. I think the fans in the bathroom.
So I was just thinking that's one way to save a lot of energy, is just not have the heater and air conditioning come
Yes.
on unless you need it.
Absolutely.
So as good as a fan.
Stacey, any other items that you wanted to cover on this topic?
Yeah, just for budget, wanted to update folks on the schedule. So there has been a change. There was meant to be another committee of the whole, council committee of the whole deliberation, I believe it was, on October 25th. They have, administration has canceled that meeting. It looks really tiny up here, sorry. It's been canceled and budget items are moved to October 17th, which is their regular council meeting. So I wanted to flag October 17th because council is also supposed to talk about their legislative priorities. So that would be an interesting meeting for
October 17th.
17th, so next Monday, I believe. And then they are, as of now, intending for the public hearing and potential budget adoption November 7th. I'll keep folks updated if that schedule changes.
Sounds like we did that.
Any questions on the schedule? Or any other insight from Monday? Sounds like you listened in last Monday.
That I can think of. I think it's great that you're gonna get a sustainability coordinator that is really huge. All these things are really huge and I feel really happy about it. You feel good about, yeah.
Yeah, I feel very lucky to have a budget to work with. I know a lot of my counterparts are not that lucky.
I guess just one question on that topic. Were these the requests or this is what is being proposed for adoption? Like what is on the ICAP proposed budget? I mean, I guess it says proposed, but just curious, like what does that mean? Is that like what you're requesting or what you actually are?
That's what I've requested.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
yeah, and a lot more detail in the budget packet. That was just meant to be like pretty much.
Would it help if we wrote letters to the council in support of this?
It definitely doesn't hurt. I don't think there are we haven't heard any concerns about the sustainability request because we do have that budget and actually the city's in a really good position overall. So there haven't been any concerns raised about that. Anne submitted some really great comments and spoke on Monday as well. So
Great job.
absolutely, you are welcome to do that. It won't hurt, but at this time, I don't think there's any. Not
All right, well, I think with that, we can move on to other business and announcements. Does anyone have any? Ann, go ahead.
I do. I would like to move, we prepare a memo recommending the Issaquah Environmental Board meets virtually November through April and in person May through October.
Second it.
Let me just check, Billy, I'm gonna mute you. I just wanna, I know we are recording, but just see if you were able to hear that too.
It was sent on email.
It was sent over email, okay,
Yes, I did see that one in the email.
great, and Nancy seconded.
Great, and I'm a little rusty on my Robert's rules, so we'll see how this goes. I believe now we have time for discussion of the motion that now that it's been seconded. So if you have any comments and questions on the motion, please go ahead and indicate that now.
Ann?
Oh, sorry.
I can, do you want me to unmute on V2 again?
Yeah, she indicated she wants to speak.
Yeah, Nathangi, please send me a message, or if you're able to raise your hand or wave us down if you'd like to speak at all, and I'll unmute you.
Cameron, you go ahead.
Yes, I think it's a great idea. I fully support the idea of virtual and in person in the season. So thank you for putting it forward.
Awesome.
Nancy, go ahead.
And I would hope that in the memo that we prepare for the mayor, that we indicate that we are an environmental board and we are trying to do this for environmental purposes to try and reduce the time we're spending commuting and the energy use of buildings,
Yeah.
just doing the right thing.
It's also good for health.
Yeah, well, health is-
I would suggest amending it to allow for some variation. If the board sees the need to vary that schedule, that it would be allowed. sure how to best word that, but.
Absolutely.
I think there should be room for some variability.
So I think, Tom, would you like to propose amendment to the motion? I think that's probably what would need to happen in this
You
case.
have to amend the motion.
Yes, I recommend amending the motion. And so now I have to come up with the wording. I'm not very good at coming up with words under pressure. I'm good with words, and when I'm bad under pressure, but under pressure. Amend the motion to say, to add the clause, or otherwise as voted by a majority of the environmental board. Does that put too much power in the hands of the board? Anyway, that's my amendment.
We, if possible, might be helpful. This is just harder, actually remote than it is. So the specifics, I just want to restate what just the portion that was your amendment at the.
Did you get it, Stacy?
Well, I think Billy's taking the notes, but some variation if by a majority of the board could be called, I'm assuming to come in person.
So I stated it as kind of a comma after the statement, but I may be misremembering how and did it.
I can try and pull it up on the screen.
Yeah, okay, I got it here. So, and in person, May through October, period, and I would just change the period to a comma, or has voted by a majority of the members of the environmental board.
Do we have a second?
I'll second Tom's idea.
All right, now time to discuss just specifically the amendment. If there's any comments on that amendment.
I think we should add a clause in there, as Stacy's benefit, that if she needs us in person, she can call us in person. I'm thinking special meetings.
Yeah.
You might want us to be in person for certain special meetings.
So this would be another amendment to Tom's amendment.
Or as requested by.
Or it said, yeah,
Say sustainability manager.
sure.
Yeah. That sounds good.
I can't read Stacy's writing.
So that's your second amendment, right?
Yeah, I'll make it bigger.
Unless vetoed by the almighty and powerful Stacy.
Okay,
I'll
so-
second the second amendment.
Okay. Any,
You bet.
what's that?
Because they may, well, I probably shouldn't be providing
Oh,
input. I was
help us
saying if the chair and vice chair called it, that it's their decision, or
Oh, I
they
see.
call to come in person versus the staff liaison.
No.
Sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to provide input, but just an idea.
Don, what would you prefer in your?
I mean, it would simplify things if it comes from the chair and or vice chair, just for meeting protocol. If you have to come in person or not. I assume that would look something along the lines of, hey, we need to come in person because of blah, blah, blah. Let us know if you have any concerns or issues around this. We have a chance to discuss that via email before the meeting.
So is that a modification to your?
Well, we didn't actually have
You
a
did-
second.
sorry.
Oh, no, I guess
We had a
Nancy
second
did.
on
I guess
our
Nancy did
amendment,
second
yeah.
it. So this would be an amendment. So do you want to make an amendment?
Do you want to withdraw your amendment and make a new one?
No, I want Stacy to have that power in there if she needs us to meet in person. Oh, here, we could do this. If I change my amendment, so it would read, or as requested by sustainability manager and or the chair.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I'll second that.
All right, so that second amendment is basically replaced by, oh no, never mind, it's an addition, okay. Any comments on Dawn's amendment? All right, well then I believe we'll take a vote on the amendment. Stacy, would you be able to help us with facilitating that?
Let's call roll.
Yes. So we are voting just on the amendment.
The bottom
Right.
right.
Just on the
Yes,
bottom
sorry, on the
amendment.
bottom amendment, that we would add in as requested by the sustainability manager and or chair. I'll call roll.
Are we voting on the
Members-
entirety of the thing?
No, we
we
have to
have
vote on
to
each
do this
amendment.
first, yeah.
So please indicate in favor or oppose. Go out. Tom Anderson.
Aye.
Don P, I will unmute you. Oh, it's not letting me. Okay, we have a thumbs up, sorry. Nancy Davidson,
Aye.
Jamie Finch,
Aye.
Cameron Fisher,
Aye.
Rishi is absent, Dan Hins,
Aye.
Laura's absent, Ashwin.
Aye.
Dominic Williams,
Aye.
Anne. Aye. And Janet.
Aye.
So we have full support for the amendment. Now are we voting on?
So I believe now we didn't ever finish comment on that portion of the amendment. So if we had any comments on the or is voted by a majority of the board, and take any comments or questions prior to that, prior to voting. And if not, we can go to a vote. So Stacey, if you could help us.
So we're voting on the first amendment now, that we would add in or is voted on by a majority of the board. Did I capture that?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So please indicate in favor or opposed. Tom,
Aye.
Nazangi, is a thumbs up. Nancy,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Cameron,
Aye.
Rishi and Laura absent. Dan,
Aye.
Ashwin,
Aye.
Don.
Aye.
Anne. Aye. And Janet.
Aye.
So now we are voting on,
We still have comments, so if there's any comments on the original motion at this stage. Sorry, I was thinking about it. If there's any comments or questions on the original motion, we can make those this time. The one question I have is based on daylight is May. I guess it kind of is, right?
Daylight savings.
Yeah,
March.
I didn't want to throw things off, but I was going to suggest starting meeting in April, but
Okay, that was my
I
first thought.
also don't know if I care enough to make an amendment to that. Quite honestly, could vote on it next time. Could vote on it when we get closer to April.
So, yeah.
It'd have to be another amendment, guys.
I'm not. The fact that we can vote on it and decide in the future, I think is good enough for me right now.
Yeah, I think as a matter of process, maybe that's the last thing we'll discuss. And okay, what should we do next month, guys? And then decide. Well, if we want to deviate from the prescribed schedule there, well, we have make a motion, vote on it, and there it is.
I think the challenge with that is the public. They need to know if we're in person or if we're not. And so we have not had citizens participate at the meetings in person, but that is an option, so they need to know what we're doing.
So the reason I chose those months is because it divides it 6 months by in half. But I had originally thought of doing November through March and April through October.
So I don't think anyone has made an amendment, so I think unless there's any other comments or questions, we can probably proceed with a vote on the motion. So Stacy, do you want to help us with that? That'd be great.
If there is no further discussion, we are voting on the full motion inclusive of the amendments. So either please indicate in favor or opposed. Tom?
All right.
Nathani? With a thumbs up. Nancy?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Cameron?
All right.
Rishi and Laura out. Dan?
Aye.
Ashwin?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
And Janet.
Aye.
So I will prepare a memo for our clerks and the mayor recommending, with this recommendation. Do folks want to review it in advance of me sending it? Or maybe to have the chair and vice chair or the full board?
Maybe we could talk about it at our Tuesday meeting.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'd be happy to be in on that.
There's certain things that I think need to be included in it that the council may ask, like if the chair calls an in-person meeting, what's that process look like? Little things.
All right, any other, I think we have that item covered. Any other business to? Basically, you have something?
I have one more item, but I also wanted to invite folks that were at the Kokanee release, maybe talk about that quickly. And then I do have one more item I want to mention before we adjourn.
Dan, you have anything you want to provide? I can give a quick update, but. Hopefully most people are familiar with our Lake Sammamish kokanee. It's a very close non-anadromous species or related species to sockeye salmon. Obviously a culturally huge part of the Snoqualmie Indian tribes' ancestral lands, and was year-round food source for the Snoqualmie Indian tribe. With a lot of our salmon runs being seasonal. So this is the first year since 2019 they've hosted an in-person release of kokanee fry into Lake Sammamish. It was a really neat ceremony. Our city of Issaquah council member Hunt was there and was talking about some of the shoreline lighting initiatives, which I know we've talked about some as a board. Talking about some of the fish passage work going on with some of the partners, City of Sammamish, City of Redmond, City of Bellevue. Obviously King County being very involved, leading the kokanee working group. So yeah, really neat stories. It was really inspirational to see some of the tribal members talking about the importance of these fish in the ceremony before, literally taking a cooler out in a boat to the middle of the lake and releasing them right at sunset too, which was cool. And I think neat stories about some of the successes here. The populations for these were in the tens and tens of thousands historically. In the last 5 years, I mean, it's been as low as 19 counted in Lake Sammamish. So in 2021, last winter, their count was close to 2,000 again, which is, they're cyclical. You don't want to read too much into high numbers, low numbers, but really good response, especially since some of the hatchery practices have changed. They've started doing more remote incubators in stream, so kind of like mini hatcheries in actual streams for kokanee. I think it's important to remember that the known kind of spawning streams for kokanee are primarily in Issaquah too. So Lewis Creek, Tibbetts Creek, Laughing Jacobs Creek. So really, really important opportunities for fish passage, which I think some of those projects are part of the stormwater master planning, both at the city level, the county level, and obviously the state level. Really excited to see Peter Buttigieg, I'll never get his last name right, but was here last week talking about, actual federal infrastructure money going to fish passages for, I think, the first time ever. So really, really cool movement there and good success stories, seeing these numbers kind of bounce back with some of these strategies. I think Zacchaeus Creek, if you want to read about City of Sammamish, is such an amazing story of essentially replacing the culvert under East Lake Sammamish Road and actually seeing kokanee spawning upstream of that road, which has been a barrier for many, many decades. So think there's some inspiration there in a species that has been on the brink of extinction here in the last little bit. Yeah, so really cool.
Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you, Dan.
All right, and Stacy,
Okay,
you had another item.
Sorry, in 30 seconds, just wanted to make sure folks were aware of an item that'll be coming to the, one of the council committees as well as hopefully council before the end of the year, is that we have been working with 4 other east side cities that we partnered with on the Energy Smart program on developing an interlocal agreement. It would be an opportunity to solidify our partnership to collaborate across multiple electrification, decarbonization, energy smart programs. It's intended to be an interlocal agreement that will sit below the King County Cities Climate Collaborative, the K4C interlocal agreement. But it would allow us to formalize our partnership so that we can work on grants together, share funds, administer contracts on behalf of other cities. We were also talking about having a shared staff person that would help administer the program. We would open it up to other cities such as Sammamish if in the future they're ready to partner. So we are going to present the concept of this interlocal agreement to the Planning Development Environmental Committee. I believe that's November 1st when they meet, with the hope that we'll have ILA ready to approve for council in December or beginning of the year. So I'll send updates to you all. I want to make sure that you are aware before that does go to the council committee. But I think it's a really great opportunity for us to formalize the partnership and allow for a lot more efficiencies so we can share resources and administer contracts for the program as a whole. Any questions on that?
Oh. So can you give an example of something that we would collaborate on?
Yeah, so one great example, well, right now the cities within the K4C ILA, we are already administering some contracts on behalf of the other cities. So Bellevue holds our contract with Spark Northwest, our nonprofit partner, instead of each of the 5 cities having a contract with Spark Northwest. And then we're also talking about having a shared staff person that would likely sit at Bellevue just because they have more capacity for the administrative piece. That individual would work on the Energy Smart program on behalf of all 5 cities. So it's more we're already doing a lot of that work. This would more formalize it and show our real commitment to continue working together.
Nice. And then other cities in the K4C could join you as well as they see fit?
Yeah, we're trying to frame it as East Side, a smaller team. We don't want it to become another K4C. K4C has its role. This is real specific for that shared resources. So there'd probably be some limit to it, but we're intending it as kind of an East Side subgroup of the K4C.
And what cities?
Right now, it's Kirkland, Redmond, Mercer Island, Bellevue, Issaquah that we are doing the heat pump campaign. Thanks. Sorry to go a little over.
All right, any other business, any other announcements? Well, I think with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye.